Hi students, this is the makeup class because of Chuseok. I'm going to talk about Unit 11, Part 2, which is, really Unit 11 is about getting work. I thought it would be very useful to look at this about how to get jobs, so I've recorded this for you, okay? So let's quickly have a look at what's in the midterms. So first of all, turn to page 4. I just want to sort of review this quickly and go through all of the midterm parts. The first is page 4, and it's the vocabulary about news sections on page 4. Then turn to Unit 2, page 15, and that is about the grammar, present perfect continuous. You can see the rule is written in the orange box, and you have exercise A there, which is about present perfect continuous. Then go to page 25, which is also grammar, and it's about the passive, present passive. You can see the examples of active and passive on page 25. The active, you serve satay with peanut butter. The passive, satay is served with peanut butter or sauce. Okay. Then go to Unit 4, pages 34. And you can see that the vocabulary there is about polite and impolite behavior. And the same on page 38. The vocabulary that time is much more about word partners. Okay, so word partners, words going together. If we go to Unit 5, I got the page wrong. It should be page 46. If you go to page 46, you can see that the interactions there is about problems, and that will be in the test as well. And then if you turn to page 54 and 55, you've got vocabulary about character traits, and you've got defining relative clauses on page 55. So there you've got relative clauses and character traits. Okay, so if you look at the list of character traits on page 54, you can see competitive, energetic, idealistic, imaginative, independent, logical, loyal, rebellious, and studious. And in language and context, there's more personality types: reformer, helper, achiever, individualist, investigator, loyalist, enthusiastic, challenger, and peacemaker. So if you want to, you should study those for the midterm test. Let's now talk about the relevant dates. As you can see in the list, we've got Project A's on the 18th and 22nd of October. Then there's a midterm review on the 25th of October. I believe the midterm is only one day. It's the 29th of October. Then we have Project B from on the 26th and 29th of November. Then the final review is on 10th of December, and the final is on the 13th of December. We won't be doing makeup because this is what the video is about, so that we don't have to do makeup classes. So if you have any questions about dates, please let me know. There is a confusion around the midterm date. I think we'll only be doing one day and not two, as it suggests in there. So throughout this video I might show a few things. This is the gayagum, right? A traditional Korean or Chinese musical instrument. And maybe music is something that you're really into. In the past, I had a student who really enjoyed making music. He showed me a few videos of him on YouTube, and now he's producing his music and selling it over the internet. If that's something you would like to do, that's actually quite a good thing to do. I think people can make a good living from music. It's not always easy to become famous, but to play music is fun, it's enjoyable, people love to play music. So maybe if you play the piano or if you play violin, you could either teach that to younger people, or you could, with your friends or family, do some entertainment for other people. I've seen people singing in hotels in Korea and at the bars and the clubs. I think it's possible to make a reasonable living with music. So now what I want you to do is look at these questions, think about these questions, and I want you to post your answers on the Kakao Talk chat room. So here's a few questions about your future. The first question is, what are your future goals? I'd like to talk about what my future goals were when I was a little bit younger than now. A few years ago I set out some goals for my life. One of them was to do voluntary work anywhere, and I did that in England for a year. I did some volunteering there. My second goal was to go to university, and I got my BA from my university. And my third goal was to travel to another country and live there for a period of time, no longer than 4 years. Well, I've been in Korea now for 12 years, so I really did fulfill that. I went further than I expected. And after I achieved those goals, I wanted also to learn a language, and I started to learn Korean. I also wanted to learn about another culture. I've tried to learn about Korean culture. It's been quite hard. The other things that I did was set new goals. I wanted to get my master's, my postgraduate degree, which I did through the University of Birmingham in England. And another future goal that I put on myself was to start my own business, which really hasn't happened yet. So hopefully that will happen. If we go to the first sort of smaller question here, it says, what are your short-term goals? So for me, perhaps my short-term goal is to save up a bit more money, to make some savings, and to learn more about teaching, how to become a better teacher, how to become a better teacher with my students, how to interact with them better, and to really just improve on my teaching abilities, really. So the other goals I have, I guess I got short-term goals like building my Gundam, reading books, finishing a book that I'm reading right now, watching this TV show that I'm enjoying, an American TV show, American drama, and some other sort of short-term or small goals that I have. Here are my medium-term goals for the next 5 years. I'm hoping that I will have a lot more savings, that I would also have investments in companies to make more money. I also hope to have a better paid job, to have a car, to have my own home, preferably be married. And what are my long-term goals for the next 10 to 20 years? I hope to be at a point where my savings are so good and my money is so good that I can actually begin to enjoy myself more, to go traveling, to be able to help people who need help, bless people with money. And that's really what my longer term goals are. So what I want you to do now is for you to think about these questions. What are your goals? What are your future goals? What are your short-term goals this year? What are your medium-term goals for the next 5 years? And what are your long-term goals for the next 10 to 20 years? Most people want the normal life, like house or car, marriage, children. But some people want other things. Some people are not the same as the standardized values, or don't have the same standard goals that we have. And that's good too. We can all be very unique and different, you know. And so I want you to think about that and then write your future goals on the on the Kakao Talk, okay? And I look forward to receiving those messages from you. So another kind of job that you might want to consider is board game design. This board game here is called Terraforming Mars, and in the game your goal is to terraform Mars. And the design of a game is quite complex. There's lots of different things you need to consider, and you can see my foot in the bottom right hand corner. Ignore that. It's basically you need to have cards or dice or bits and pieces for the game, a board and some minor or smaller boards. There's a lot of complex things that you need to consider. It's meant to be a little bit challenging, competitive at times, so it's worth, maybe if you feel like you're into engineering or something like that, this could be something you could do to make money, design a board game. So anyway, that's just one of the things you can do as a job. Now I want you to think about the sorts of goals that people tend to have. Here I've got it's actually four different sections in this table. If you count the last one as two different sections, relationships and hobbies. You've got study goals, work goals, and relationships and hobbies. Let's start with talking about study goals. So study goals come in many forms, I think. One of my friends from Taiwan really wanted to be an air hostess, so she studied to be an air hostess and she didn't go to university to do that. She went to an academy, sort of a private academy, in the evenings and studied her goal there. So there's lots of goals. I mean, if you think about it as a university student, your study goals would be to finish your degree and to leave Dongguk University with a good grade in your undergraduate degree. Your other study goals might include to continue studying. Maybe you want to study a master's, a postgraduate degree, or even a PhD. Many people want to do English exams like TOEIC or TOEFL or IELTS, and that's also very good for future jobs or living abroad. Perhaps you need to study something to get the job that you want. Perhaps there's a license that you need to study for if you want to work for the government or some other organization or business. Another important goal that you may have is work goals. Some of you may be working already in a part-time job, and maybe your work goals are connected to what you want to achieve in your part-time job. Other work goals might be voluntary work that you do. Perhaps you work as a volunteer so that can help you with future job opportunities or for other reasons. And perhaps you're looking for a way to succeed in your voluntary work, whether that's with older people, people with disabilities, younger people, homeless people, whatever that may be. Volunteering might also be part of your work goals. And finally, of course, it's getting the job that you really want after you graduate. And you've set yourself some goals there. Perhaps you've said you would like to work for a small business, start your own company, or you want to do a middle-sized company, work for a middle-sized company or a larger conglomerate like Samsung or Hyundai. And so you've set some goals there, goals that you hope are achievable, that are not too overwhelming, and perhaps there's steps that you need to take to get to that place, including how to prepare for interviews, how to prepare for application forms, what to fill in, what websites to go to look for jobs, what newspapers to read, different things, what different job agencies. We talked in the classroom a little bit about job fairs as well, as a way to sort of find out what jobs are are available at the moment. Other goals that you might have might include relationships, perhaps trying to work on a relationship with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Maybe being in a relationship with somebody is something that you really want right now, if you're single. Or maybe you're trying to get over a broken relationship. Also, relationships with families are very important. I know sometimes families can be difficult, and so working on forgiving parents or brothers or sisters if they've somehow harmed you or hurt you in any way. And hobbies might be connected to your work. Maybe your hobbies are something you want to do as a job later. For example, I have a student who's a Buddhist major, but he loves music, and he started to sell his music on the internet. Maybe some of you want to do that. Maybe some of you have hobbies that you think would be good ways to work, good jobs to have, and that's also something worth thinking about. So I want you to just look at this table and just fill in the blanks with your own study goals, or study goals that people have, work goals that people have, relationship goals and hobby goals that people have around about your age. Think about the people you study with at university and think about what they would like to do in the future. This video is my mother and my mother's dog Ruby. My mum is retired, she's in her 70s, but she does hosting for students to make money. So sometimes a student will stay at her house and she'll look after them. Maybe that's something you could do if you have your own place to live. Another thing you'll notice about this video is that I have my mother's dog in the video, Ruby. And Ruby is quite a cute little puppy, and he tends to sing if you sing along. Anyway, maybe you love animals, and there's lots of jobs that involve animals, whether it's working on a farm, working with pets, working in a zoo, or some other safari, or some other way of looking after animals. Maybe that's something you would enjoy doing. With regards to singing, if you're good enough, maybe you could be a singer, and it's definitely worth thinking about. So have a look at this video and enjoy it. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a place that I dream of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up So with this section of the class, even though you're not in a group in the classroom, I think this would be an ideal thing to talk about with your project groups. Perhaps you could do this together on Kakao Talk in your own little open chat with each other if you have each other's permission. I think using open chat is a very safe way to do it. So first of all, you can make that group, and then think about different jobs that you think the future will have, and then talk about why. When you think about all the different job industries out there, the future is so uncertain for so many people, but there will always be a need for jobs. Some people say that artificial intelligence will actually rob people of the work that they need, or maybe artificial intelligence will do most of the intellectual and difficult jobs, and people will just be doing menial and sort of easy jobs, right? But if we look at the way that, for example, newspapers are changing. If we remember from Unit 1, we talked about the news. Well, people these days have internet news, and internet news really is something that most people, I think, are beginning to use. I don't think people buy newspapers anymore. So the future of the internet news maybe will be transformed by new technologies. Okay, so obviously people have been watching TV news since the television has come out, since it was invented. People have been watching the news on the internet, at least since the internet has become publicly more popular and more useful and common in the home. And so I think that side of work will have definitely been transformed by the internet, you know. And if we look at Unit 11, page number 103, we can see a lot of different types of work there. If we look at the first one, the race car driver, perhaps technology which will help them to drive faster and safer might change the way that race car driving is done. There'll also probably be more experts in the field of technology in that industry. If we go to the second picture, we can see a woman who works with dolphins, an animal trainer. Maybe there could be some technological improvement there. Let's just look at what I want you to do is just in your groups perhaps discuss why you think there might be an improvement in some of these areas. Let's look at the next picture, a hairstylist or yeah. How could technology change the way hairstyling is done? Is it possible for AI to take the place of a human person? We look at the other picture. There's a man with a monkey, I think, but you can see he's giving a tour to some people. He's a tour guide. Do you think being a tour guide will also be changed in the future? And then the next one is a singer or songwriter. Do you think AI could write their own songs? And look at the others. The other one is that next picture is an archaeologist. Could technology improve his work? A DJ. Well, lots of technology is used in music these days. A fashion designer. How could technology improve fashion design? Could AI replace fashion designers? And a video game designer, I think, is the last one. Well, there's a lot of technology in that field. Could AI replace that? Could AI replace the way people do video gaming? Think about that as well. Think about other jobs that you want to do. What will happen to your job in the future? What will technology, AI, and other things like that do for your prospects? Will it harm your prospects? Will it be a positive thing? Will there be a positive evolution? Have a think about that and talk about that with your group over the Kakao open chat. I think that would be very useful. So sometimes when we're looking for jobs we have to look in the newspaper. I picked up this Korean newspaper, free one, and just looked through it for jobs. To be honest, I didn't see anything interesting in there. Perhaps there are a few things. I saw a few part-time jobs advertised. I don't know whether it's worth picking up one of these newspapers and having a look inside. It possibly is. Definitely if you're looking for a job, sometimes it's good just to be earning money no matter what job you do. So think about picking up and looking at one of these newspapers.
Right, g'day, mate.
Alright, Damien.
Good, mate. What are you up to?
I was looking for a job, mate.
Job hunting,
Yeah.
huh?
But it's all in Korean.
Oh, no.
Any chance you could help me out?
Sure.
Translation. What does this mean? Speed Guin.
Whoa, you don't know that one?
Do you know what it means?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Come on, you tell me. You
Well-
try. Work it out.
I think speed means speed.
Yeah.
Guin means job.
Use your phonics, mate.
Yeah. So there we go. I'm looking for a job,
There you go.
but yeah, there's not really much going on, to be honest.
I doubt there's many teaching jobs in there.
Well, yeah, not much. Cooking.
Cooking. Can you
and-
cook?
No,
Something to learn, mate.
that is. There's something here for part-time jobs.
What about truck driving school? Is that in there?
There's a bit about training.
There you go. What else would you be interested? What are your skills?
My skills. Being lazy, sleeping,
Nice.
gaming.
Gaming. There we
Yeah,
go.
I can game. I'll get a job as a gamer.
Excellent.
But there isn't anything here for gamers.
Mm.
Oh dear.
I think that's one of those jobs you got to make your own way, mate.
Oh, there's one here which is involving alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
working in pubs. I like drinking.
Okay.
Maybe it's a good place to work. What do you think?
Late nights. Do you like late nights?
No, I don't
Might
like
not work for you.
late nights. I'm
Might
an
not
early
work
morning
for you.
person.
Depends on the work schedule. What's the money like?
Well, I'm just looking now. Here's one that I can work in a Norlay bang.
Nice.
Norlay dormi, it says here. I think that
Uh-huh.
means helper in a Norlay in a singing room. I
Okay.
have to be between the ages of 20 and 50,
Only 50.
and I can get. I have no idea what this means. 700?
Oh,
That can't be right. 701 an hour? No,
no.
surely
A
not.
month.
Yeah, that's about it.
Okay.
I think I'll do it. I'll finish this later. Thanks, man.
No worries, mate. Good luck.
So one of the things I think a lot of people probably don't think about very much, but still a lot of people do work in this area, although not as much as they used to, and perhaps many of these skills have been lost over time, is jobs within traditional work environments. When I think of South Korea, I do think that South Korea has so many traditions that are something that people want to cherish and remember. When I think about South Korea, I think of the very traditional villages around the country. For example, Andong, which I think is traditional because of well, there's those famous masks for one thing, and I really want to buy one of those masks. I want to take it back with me and give it to my friend who really loves to collect. He really loves to collect masks. So there's some really interesting traditions. When my mother visited, we went to Namsan and we wore some hanbok. We wore the hanbok up on Namsan and walked around. Had some pictures with traditional backgrounds, and that was something. Hanboks are something that Koreans really love. But if people stopped making the hanbok, it would be the end of a tradition that really is quite wonderful. People love the beauty of the hanbok. It influences many fashions these days, and people would really enjoy wearing it, although I suppose sometimes it can be a little bit of a burden when it's really hot weather. So the other thing is, when we went down to Jeonju, my mother and I, we did see a lot of traditional things that Koreans make, and we went into the village, the traditional village, and we walked around. We saw lots of people wearing the traditional clothing, and we saw lots of things like traditional coffee shops, traditional restaurants. So when I think about Korea's food, for example, if people could not cook jjigae anymore, or one of the special foods like songpyeon, or if people couldn't make kimchi anymore, that would be something so wonderful that would be lost. And even just the styles of buildings. I mean, these days when I look around Seoul, I see so many modern buildings, but why not continue to build the traditional buildings, the ones that we see in the palaces in Seoul? Why not continue to build those, and increase those kind of traditional styles, just to sort of keep hold of the wonders of Korean history, the beauties of the buildings that are in Korea. Other traditions that would be lost are the wedding traditions. In Korea these days, many weddings are in wedding halls, and it seems like the tradition of wearing hanbok and the way that there's so many ceremonial things about weddings in Korea are being lost because of more influence from the West, and so we're kind of losing that in Korea. Also, I think there's lots of other ceremonies. Maybe some ceremonies are lost because of religion, and if those ceremonies go, do people lose their jobs? I don't know. I don't know whether that's significant or not, but if they do, how can we help them to perhaps keep those traditions alive, but maybe in a way that is more relevant to the modern world? So anyway, that's worth thinking about. What does the future hold for traditional jobs in Korea? Is there any way to ensure that they never disappear? What can be done to make sure we don't lose those traditions? And when I think about traditional jobs in England and Europe, there's a lot of things lost in England and Europe that we still, we should have kept hold of. And I guess a lot of those things are also in Korea. Like if you look at the picture, pottery, for example, the traditional way of making pottery, it's probably been lost to factories, So answer these questions and put your answers on the Kakao Open Chat. Right, now we're going to talk about the book. There's a few things you can do in the book. You don't have to do all of them, but these will be obviously very helpful for you. And if we go to page 108 first, in part C of chapter 11, you can see there's a section there on vocabulary and setting goals. And you have to match the words with the pictures. So, for example, number 1 is a picture of some people in France in a classroom. Which one would that be for? I think it's for F, study abroad, right? So if you can just match those. The other thing you can do here is the conversation on page 108. It says listen, but you don't have the CD, so just read through that. Well, you might have the CD at the back, but I don't know. Just read through that and answer the question, who will Zach marry in 5 years? Okay. You can't listen to the rest of the conversation unless you have the CD or the audio file. If you really want that, you can ask me and I'll try to get it for you, okay? And then over on page 109, we have the grammar, which is future continuous versus future with will. And you can see in the brown box a little description about the two types of future tenses. Okay, so read those, read about that, and then answer the questions. So, for example, complete the conversations with the future continuous or future with will, then practice with a partner. What will you do a year from now, I believe. Could be, or what will you be doing a year from now? Both could be correct, I think. And so go through those answers, and I think that will really help you with your grammar. The actual answer is, though, will be doing, okay? What will you be doing? Okay, so go through that one, and then there's some more pronunciation practice with the reduction of will, part 4. When will your friends finish this class? So you sort of say ul instead of will. That's part of pronunciation, reduction of will. And then talk about your own goals. What goals do you have? Part 5. And then it says here you can go to keep talking on page 148. So after you've talked about your own goals, go to 148 at the back of the book, and you can see there's a sort of what will that really happen. There's a section there on page 148. It's a blue table. It says, will that really happen? Find someone who believes students will be finishing college in just 3 years in the future. Well, that happens in England anyway, but maybe in America it's different, right? And so you've got a list here, and it's all about beliefs about the future, right? So the second one, find someone who believes most people will be eating only organic food in the future. So read through those, ask somebody in the group, perhaps you can call them on Kakao Talk and practice that with them. Practice that with different people in the class using Kakao Talk, people in your group. Okay, so then let's go to part D. The part D section on page 110, the reading is about jobs of the future. And you can see in that grey box on page 110, there are a list of 5 different jobs for the future, and I'm kind of interested in the 4th one, space tour guide. More and more people will be taking leisure trips to space. So I watched a movie about that recently called Ad Astra, and it looks quite, maybe this is the future, maybe this will be the future. And then if you go to the other page, 110, writing and speaking, you're writing to somebody, read these job ads for positions at Carolina Industries, then read the letter below, which job is Teresa interested in. So that might be helpful to read through that job, that letter for a job, okay? So the next slide is about preparing a role play. You and your partners prepare to talk about the future of technology and how that will affect work. The second part is, how can artwork be important for future jobs? So if you really want some inspiration about the future of jobs, I think part C talks about future goals, and you can see there's lots of things ahead, things there to help you with that. So there's vocabulary and there's conversations about planning ahead. And if you go to page 110, if you wanted to, you could do you could use some of the inspiration from page 110's grey box about jobs of the future, and perhaps do some role play about that. So for example, the first job on that list in the grey box on page 110 is drowned city specialist, and just by looking at the picture, I think it's jobs which are needed when a city has been flooded. And the reason why that might be something needed in the future is because perhaps in the future cities will be flooded by because of the ice caps melting, because of the global warming, right? And I know that my hometown is at the beach, and I often worry about my mother's house, because if the sea levels rise because of global warming, then it will affect my hometown. And second picture is a dirigible pilot. A dirigible is like an airplane, but it looks like a hot air balloon, right? And I think that will, I think that might be future transportation because it's probably cheaper, and so, you know, maybe that's what pilots will be trained to do in the future. Then obviously robots will be a big part of the future, so there'll be people who need to do jobs with robots, engineers, software engineers, hardware engineers, programmers, people who understand about AI, people who understand about the internet. So robot mechanics will probably become quite important in the future. So maybe you want to do a role play about robot mechanics, okay? And then we've talked about this before, but you know, space tour guides. As I said, I watched a movie recently with Brad Pitt called Ad Astra, and in that there's people who go to the moon for sort of tourism, and it's possible that that could happen in the future. In the movie, there's lots of sort of companies working on the moon, like Subway Sandwich and McDonald's and companies like that. So it could be possible that in the future people will travel to the moon. And then this other one, teleport specialist. I think it's a bit of a weird pipe dream. I've seen it in the movie Star Trek, but I really don't think anyone will ever be able to teleport from one place to the next. I think there will be other forms of transport, but I don't think teleportation will be one. So in all of these jobs though, even teleportation I suppose, do you think artwork is needed? I personally think perhaps with the aircraft, the robots and the space tour guides, there needs to be an element of art there, because you want to make the airship look attractive, so there needs to be a designer. You want the robots to look human, as human as possible, again, so you need someone who's artistic to design them. And perhaps also with the space tour guides, artists would be needed to design the places that people will visit, the space rockets, the space outfits, everything around that topic, you know. So I think, yeah, artists would definitely be required, especially in the area of design in the future. I think if there is no art, it would look ugly and people would not enjoy it, and it wouldn't be very interesting to do those things. And all of these are commercialized, so they need money. They need people to want to use these things. So art would have to be a very important part of this. Okay, so this slide is about artwork. We've talked about the importance of artwork in future jobs, and perhaps some of you are not interested in art so much because maybe your majors had nothing to do with that, had nothing to do with painting or poetry or anything like that. But I think we should just explore this question and sort of work through some of these questions and figure out, you know, the importance of art in the world today. So first of all, I want to talk about, first question, how great is your interest in art? So how great is your interest in art? Are you very interested in art, or are you not very interested in art? I think for me art is quite interesting. I've been to many art galleries in the past, especially in London, and I really enjoyed it. And I would recommend definitely visiting some of the arts museums in London. If you ever get to go there, go to the Tate Gallery and other art places like that. What's the best art gallery you've been to? Well, for me it's in London. I love going to the art galleries in London. As I said, there's Tate Modern, there's Tate, the Tate Gallery. There's lots of art galleries in London that I recommend, and there's also some in Seoul. I've been to a number in Seoul, but if I just sort of explain the ones in London, there's one called the National Gallery, which is is an art museum near Trafalgar Square, and it's one of our oldest museums, art galleries, and it has a lot of paintings from the all the way back to the mid 13th century. So it's got a lot of art history there. It's really worth going to that museum. So, do you like modern art? I don't like it so much, but there is some modern art that I like. But certainly my favourite artist is not a modern artist. My favourite artist is William Blake, and he is definitely not a modern artist. He's also a poet, but yeah, I'm not so much into that. So, what do you think of installation art? So, installation art means 3D art. When you go into a museum, you see 3D art. I think sometimes that can be okay, but sometimes I don't like it. Sometimes it's okay. People rave about the artistic nature of these sort of 3D artists, but I'm not that bothered about it. I prefer paintings, and I've seen a lot of good art in Seoul. There's one really good art gallery in Hannam-dong that I went to recently, and it had a lot of international artists there, and I recommend that. That had some installation art there too. Do you ever think a lot of art is not really art? That's the question number 5. It's difficult to say, isn't it? I'm not really an expert on art, but you almost feel sometimes when you look at a painting, it doesn't seem very artistic, or it doesn't seem very difficult to do. And I always feel like if you're going to make a masterpiece, it's got to be a little bit difficult to make. There must be some challenge about it. It can't be too easy. It can't be just splashes of paint on the picture. But some people say that Jackson Pollock is a really good artist, even though it's just splashes of paint. Do you have a favourite artist? Yes, I do. I like William Blake, as I mentioned before. There are other artists that I like, but he's my favourite because I like the themes of his artwork. I also feel there's a lot of sort of philosophy behind his art. He does a lot of philosophical paintings about history, which I find really interesting, and I love his poetry too. What kind of art do you like? Painting, sculpture, ceramics? Personally, when I like to draw, I use pencils. And pencils for me is my preference, although I do like other mediums. Sometimes I use pen. But so why don't you answer those questions yourself? Perhaps put a few of your answers on the Kakao Talk. Perhaps you could ask some other people in your group about what their answers are. Message them on Kakao Open Chat and ask a few people. Okay, I want us to quickly go back to page 109 and want to look further into future continuous and future with will. So here on the slide you can see some examples. What will you do next year? What will you be next year? What were you doing next year? What will you be doing next year? Which one's correct? A, B or C? Actually, C is correct. Jacob Chinese at a university next year. Is it A, B or C? It's A. Will be studying. So let's go to page number 109, and in the grammar box I'll read aloud the explanation there on page 109. Use the future continuous to describe actions in progress at a specific time in the future. Where will you be studying next year? I'll be studying in Paris. I won't be working as a journalist then. So you've got will, okay? I will be, future continuous. And use the future with will with verbs that are not usually used in the continuous form. What will you achieve in 20 years? Will you be financially independent? Yes, I will, but I'll have to work hard. Okay, so a lot of the words there are not action words, so they don't have the ing. Okay? So work through the answers there if you haven't done it already. Questions 1 to 5. So you can see that they are describing particular points in the future. The difference is that certain verbs such as achieve and be are not generally used in the future continuous. Okay? So the verbs of state rather than actions are not used in the continuous. So do you know any verbs that are state verbs, not action verbs? I've got a list here. So here's some examples. Believe, doubt, imagine, know, to know, K-N-O-W, like, hate, prefer, realize, remember, understand, agree, belong, deserve, and own, O-W-N, to own something. All of these are state verbs. None of these are used with ing. So if you're going to use these verbs and you want to talk about the future, do not use it with the ing, just use it with will. And so make sure when you do use ing, you have the to be verb. So if you look at the brown box again, I'll be studying, I won't be working, so we use will be ing, okay, or won't be ing. So make sure you use those correctly. So this is a video I took the other day when I was walking home along Namsan. I got to a viewpoint where I could see Gangnam, and there's a great view of Lotte Tower, and you can see there's like a red and white big blob in the middle of the video. That is that's the bridge that crosses the Hangang into Gangnam. And you can just see the red line is all the lights going towards Gangnam, the white line is all the lights going in the opposite direction. And when I was looking out across Gangnam, it made me think about our this video. I wanted to talk to you all about jobs from Unit 11, and as I looked out I thought, wow, the lights are all on in those buildings. They're all office buildings, you know, and you can see just people are working till very late, and there's all of those people won't get home till maybe, I don't know, 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and then after they had a sleep, they get up and they go back to work. And those cars there, the white, that big white and red blob in the middle of the video, is just people going home from work. And I think working in South Korea is a very difficult thing to do. I don't think it's very easy, and people work long hours. The boss, the owner of the companies, expects so much from their workers. It's highly stressful, highly competitive. People are out to get you back. They don't want you to succeed sometimes. It's a very ruthless place to work, and it makes people feel stressed, and it makes people unhappy in their workplace. And really, we do need to find ways to handle relationships in the workplace. How do we deal with the difficult boss, the one who gives us a difficult time, the one who puts us down? How do we handle the toxicity of relationships in the workplace? When we think about colleagues we work with, or we will work with in the future, what will we do if we come across someone so toxic that we dread going into the workplace every day. How can we handle that toxicity? Do we have someone to talk to about these problems? Should we treat that person with the same disdain as they treated us with, or should we respond with kindness and friendship? And so there's so many questions about how to deal with relationships in the workplace. People think, oh, don't worry about that, you can just go and grumble about them to your work colleagues when you go for a drink after work. That's how people handle stress. But is that the best approach? I mean, are there not more helpful and healthier approaches to the negativity and the toxicity of workplace environments? So anyway, if we look out to Gangnam, we can see all sorts of places out there where people are working, and you know, maybe you will be working in Gangnam. Maybe that's where your future job will be. We know that in Gangnam there are many head offices. Samsung has a big office at Gangnam Station. Hyundai and Kia have some offices near Yangjae. And if you wanted to work in Gangnam, it's a great place to work. Lots of things to do in the evenings, lots of cultural things to do, lots of interesting places to visit. So it's worth thinking about whether you'd like to work in Gangnam or not. Maybe there are many jobs there. Okay, so that's the end of the class. Just before we finish, have a look through these sentences and perhaps write a comment either on the YouTube feedback section below, or you can send it to the open chat comment section on Kakao. And here we have basically just feedback about this class. What was the most interesting thing you learned? What do you think you might forget about this class? Which one was the most boring for you? Which bored you the most? What do you hope to study in the next lesson? And what do you think you need to spend more time revising? Perhaps the grammar. So answer these, send them to either the Kakao or put something on YouTube. Thanks for listening, everyone, and have a great semester, and I'll talk to you hopefully in class.